Are we here?
We're here. Okay. Welcome back to the Gritty Mamas podcast. We have a little bit of a different setup today. It just was a lot easier to have us both in the same camera, using the same phone. Now we have the mics, if you're watching, attached to the Rode mic in the little studio. We're getting better and better and more smooth so that the editing is not so strenuous, because it's not so much the recording that's difficult. It is getting it uploaded and edited and up. And as you can see, again, we are in T-shirts and buns because it's late on a Saturday night once again. We are 1 week away from Halloween.
Have you had anybody comment on the buns?
I have had some people comment on the buns, and some people are asking, is this on purpose? And I was like, no, it's not. I think, though, that I have moved my bun up further, like towards my forehead, because yours is super close to your forehead.
Yeah.
Mine didn't used to be so close.
Really?
It was a little bit further back, but I'm now getting so much gray hair and white hair in the front that I'm like, well, let's just move this
That's
forward.
not a bad idea.
I know.
Mine started when I was in high school, and it was like a ponytail back
I'm gonna
here
keep your mouth.
that we didn't.
We decided Carly was like the soft-spoken one,
Which
is
never in my entire life has anybody ever said I'm soft-spoken.
Me
When Julie
neither.
says that to me, I'm like, what?
She's soft, right, you guys?
My dad will never believe it. I don't think he's listened to this either. My mom has. Mom, you'll have to tell me.
Yeah,
But
if she's too soft.
I will say, when I listened to it back, I did crank my volume up.
Yes.
And so I get it. We're
You
trying.
can hear me just fine because my lips are pressed against this microphone. You'll have lip gloss on this at the end of this.
Julie's a performer. I am not. So Julie's used
Yes.
to the microphone.
He was not the only singer in the family, might I add. And he was not the only dancer in the relationship.
Which is actually, that's what I want to talk about tonight.
Yes.
I want to talk about, I want to talk about who you were before you even met this man. But let's just clarify.
Yeah.
The buns have been around independent of each other, and it does not hurt. My next door neighbor, she was several times, she's like, Carly, how do you have that on your head without your head hurting? And what happened was it was actually a friend from MBA school. I mean, a wife, the Ambassa, it was a spouse association. That's what it was, the MBA spouse association. Anyway, one of the moms that I met there was like, you should grow your hair out, because I had a pixie. And I loved my pixie, by the way. It was just so high maintenance. I can't do anything high maintenance. If I have to shower to do my hair, it's not
It's
happening.
over.
It's
Yeah.
over. No. So she was like, oh, just grow it out. And I was like, it's bugging me sleeping. And she said, oh, I just put my hair up in a bun to sleep. And I was like, oh, that's kind of genius. And I started to do that, and I just like woke up, and legitimately, I did not take my hair in the morning out or down.
It was already done.
Yes, I woke up a lot of the time, and it was ready to go. And so now I do try and like redo it, but it can stay for days.
Yeah, and
Isn't that wild?
what's interesting is I take my bun out to go to sleep, because I do get headaches if my hair is too long, and your hair is really long, so that surprises me also.
I just cut like 8 inches off.
Oh, you did?
I mean, a couple months ago, but yeah.
That surprises me that she
Yeah.
can even fit that much in her, because it like goes down to her rear end. Anyway, enough of the chit chat. I also wanted to mention that if you go to the podcast, you can like scroll down below the description, and there is a text us button that you can click to message the show. We can read those. We can do a Q&A. We've got, gotten messages about resources for single moms. We've gotten messages about the buns. We've gotten messages and questions, and to stop the chit chat and just get on with the story. But like the story
People want the salacious stuff, and I'm not here for it.
Yeah, it's 18 years deep, and I'm not just going to get into the dirt without the sweetness.
Context.
Yeah.
Well, you have to have the context. You could make anybody look as horrific as you want if you take a very small portion of their life out and you just share it with the world.
Well, because I've gotten so many comments that I'm exploiting and I'm hurting my children by talking about this, and your kids will resent you for speaking negatively about this experience or whatever it might be. But I disagree. Because, first of all, this was a high profile, and I say that very loosely because I don't think it's that high profile.
In the state of Utah,
yeah.
you can say your ex's name, and people often will know who you're talking about.
Right.
Not all the time. Some people will look at me in the face and be like, I don't know who that is.
Right. So a Utah high profile and high conflict divorce. my kids were involved. They were brought into the limelight when they were born. I was vlogging about my births and delivering babies, but like Alex was always on board with that. And I took them to watch him perform, and they were often in his music videos, or at least a couple of them. And so they were already involved in this. And so when the court system says the children should know nothing about this, I was like, well, that's just impossible. That's absurd. You know, they're hearing about it at school. They're hearing about it at dance and at tumbling and at gymnastics. And anytime if he happened to show up to an event, then there's people talking, because this case was known, has been known. And so I am going to talk about it, and I am going to talk about the experience and the things that I felt without disparaging and without speaking of him in a bad light. But I do want my kids to look back on this and to understand why I made the choices I made and why I thought the way I thought.
Don't you want to kind of untangle the complexity a little bit? Because I've never been divorced. I know a lot of people who have, but being on the outside, I don't think you understand the complexity of it until you're there, or you know somebody really well who has been there or is there. Yeah. There's so many things that you don't understand. And yes, there's two sides to every story. But for somebody, I mean, it was Facebook, was it, that he came out and said that you left him? He's the one that came out on social media and made it public.
He didn't say that on social media, but he did ask me to keep it quiet. And then he was the one that posted verbatim, "It is with sadness that Julie and I are separating." And I was like, come again? Like, wait, what? I got a screenshot, a text from Ari's third grade teacher at the time. And she said, "I'm so sorry." And I said, "About what?" So I had no idea, but I am going to talk about this stuff.
Did he tell you were separating by that point? Like he had walked away by then, or he announced it online before he announced it to you?
I was still, there's so many little details to that. He had left for 2 months, came back, said he wanted to work it out. And then once he came home and got what he wanted, I will just say, he said then a day or two later, "Never mind, I actually do want out." And then maybe a couple weeks later, he posted it. Because I still was in denial. I still was hoping and wanting him to come home.
It was still so fresh.
And I still didn't think that he was really going to go through with it, because again, and maybe we'll talk about that today, he had left once before. So there's a lot to this story, and it does mean something or it does put the story, I guess, into context or make more sense by talking about it from the beginning. And that involves decisions that I made and things that I thought were righteous, because I live in church culture. And it's not a bad thing, but it affected the decisions that I made.
Well, I will say, I've thought often back to this experience that I had when I was newly married, and I was walking down the South Campus Hill at BYU with a friend of mine. And we were headed back to my apartment to study for statistics. And she was like stressing so hard about getting an A in this class. And I said to my friend, "Why do you care so much about getting an A?" Like, in my mind, I'm pretty sure I was pregnant. I think it was one of my last semesters. And I was like, C's to get degrees at this point, man. Like, I'm just trying to survive, And what she said changed my world a little bit, because she said, "Carly, the only time my dad ever told me he loved me was when I got a 4.0. And it just triggered something in my brain, because you only know the culture of the home that you grow up in, and the culture of the church that you grow up in. And every home and every church and every community has flaws. Yeah. And there's a context. You just don't know what you don't know. And in that moment, I was like, wait a second, this girl who grew up, neither one of us grew up in Utah. She grew up in California, and I grew up in Seattle. And we grew up in LDS homes with active parents that loved us, as far as I knew about her, right? But my dad told me he loved me every day, right? Like, there are all of these things that I just assumed was
happening in everybody's family.
Exactly. Oh, if you're LDS, this is what it's like for you. And again, like getting married, I just assumed that my husband believed the same things that I did, because he was at a church school and he was raised LDS. So there were conversations that I just didn't have, because I didn't think I need to, right?
I remember having a conversation with an elder on my mission. I served in Paraguay, And this kid and I were having a conversation about the Sabbath day. And he's like, we kind of had a crush on each other, but, kept everything mission appropriate. But we were talking about when we got home and how we believed the Sabbath day to be holy in a different way. He's like, I totally played football with my dad on Sundays. And I was like, how dare you? Like we stayed in Sunday dresses.
No, you didn't.
We did. Yeah, it was it was a strict household, but we were still jumping off the roof onto the tramp in our Sunday dresses, and they were just flapping in the wind. So we stayed in Sunday dresses. We wrote in journals. Bless my mom's heart. She tried to have us have it be a different day. Mm-hmm. And I understand, because as soon as we dressed into shorts and T-shirts, it may as well have been a Saturday. Mm-hmm. But when he told me he played football with his dad, I was like, you can't do that. And he's like, it was like the best memories and the best moments I've ever had were Sundays with my dad. And I remember thinking like, oh, he's not the one for me. But also like having this mind shift of, wait, who do I think I am?
Yeah.
But I was 21, and we're getting like so off topic, and there's so many things to talk about.
But I think it matters. I think this matters because when you're knowing what we're going to talk about and knowing, how you think when you're dating, and you weren't super young, but young, right? Yeah. As you age and you study more and you learn more and you talk to more people, like you just can't help but grow and mature in ways you don't understand beforehand. Yeah. And so you want to blame yourself. I think the reason why I want to talk about Julie's like before Alex and then dating and stuff is because I think it's relatable for people to see like, okay, I see myself in this story because I was naive too. I thought these things that I don't think anymore. And I don't want people to think that getting married young is bad. I don't want people to think that. And I wasn't that young. Yeah,
I was 25 years old. I had a college degree. I graduated like with honors. I spoke a second language. I had been on a mission. I had had a ton of job experience. Like I was ready for the next step.
How many boys had you dated?
I wasn't very boy hungry like my sisters. So, I mean, maybe 4.
Okay.
Maybe 3. I had a boyfriend as my senior year summer. And I had like 2 boyfriends. That was it. I did not date a ton. And that was another probably problem. But I look back now as I was making the drive over here thinking about dating and him and some of the things that I see now where I'm just slapping myself like, you idiot.
But like, you don't know. That's the thing. I don't think that age has as much to do with it as like, so another quick story. I was making $12 an hour in 2004, which was like actually a decent amount of money,
right? I was making $13 in 2007, married at 25 years old. $13, people.
So I was making $12 an hour when I was 17 because I nannied. Wow, yeah. I graduated a semester early so I could nanny. And I didn't want to go to school. It's like, Dad, I'm making bank. I'm happy where I am, the 17-year-old. And my dad was like, Carly, do you know how often you complain about the stupid boys here? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, where do you think you find the smart ones? And I was like, dang it. So I was like,
meaning what? You had to leave?
You had to go to
Seattle?
School. Like, go to school.
Oh.
Because I like...
Oh, you're talking about you graduated from high school early.
Yes, I graduated from high school early.
Okay.
And because I got married, you guys, at 19. So
she was young.
Yeah. So I graduated high school at 17. I walked at 18, and then I went straight to BYU. I did a summer term. But the reason I went to school was because my dad was like, you're going to marry an idiot if you stay here, basically. He's like... You find the smart ones at school. And I had a good experience, but I dated a ton in high school. Like, I mean, by the time I married my husband, I probably had only kissed like 6 boys. It's not like it's a ton, but I dated a ton. And like I always had a boy of some kind, whether it was a boyfriend or a friend that was a boy, you know what I'm saying? So when I met James, I was like, we can tell my story one day later. It doesn't pertain to this. But basically what happened was I met him and I was like, I'm just going to keep saying yes. He kept asking me out and I was like, I'm going to keep saying yes until he gives me a reason to say no. And he never did. And I knew I would be an idiot not to marry him. And that's why I married him, because I dated enough. Yeah. Right? And so I just think that some of the principles in the stories aren't to say that looking for a righteous man is a bad thing, and putting focus on the church, because that's what you saw in him, right? You saw an active LDS man, or getting married young isn't bad.
And I will say I did have, I don't want to say this in a politically incorrect way, so I will just say I had an attraction to ethnic men. And so
you're not the only one.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of us, but I tended to find myself having crushes on, could have been, a Polynesian. Like, it was just the ethnic men that I was drawn to. So there was that. There was the fact that
was it also a performer? Because you were a performer.
I was, but not really. It didn't have to be.
Okay.
It wasn't even success. It wasn't like, I want the rich and I want to be rich someday. You better have money. It wasn't that. I was attracted to ambition. I was attracted to a man that goes after what he wants. And so when he's pursuing me, I was like, okay.
Yes. Yes.
And he was very aggressive in that. But like, even, and we'll go back, but even when he met me and asked about me, like he said, how many times have you been engaged? And I was like, what? I mean, I had dated like 2 boys in high school that I considered boyfriends. And I was like, never. And he's like, what? I've been engaged 3 times.
What?
I mean, I should have been like waving the red flag. Who should have been waving that sucker even then? Because I was like, you officially got on one knee with a ring and proposed 3 times? Like, but I didn't want to make him feel stupid. Because I just assumed, and he did explain to me, I don't know if this is the truth or not, but it was mostly a black issue. Because it was in Utah, and a lot of the parents didn't want their white daughters dating him.
Do you feel like that was expressly said to him, or do you think he internalized that?
I think probably both.
Okay.
I think both. And I think it depended on the girl. I think one girl was like, I cannot, and I experienced the same thing. My parents were...
apprehensive?
Apprehensive is a good word, yes. And not because they didn't like him, and not because they were racist by any means, but they grew up in that generation. And they grew up in church culture that stated you marry within your race. You marry within your socioeconomic status.
Yeah, that's not doctrine, but it's culture.
Right, culture. And that's what they believed was the recipe for a more healthy marriage. And I can see that with different cultures and different things that they eat and different, attitudes they have. But even to this day, I will defend the fact that the struggles and the happiness in the marriage had nothing to do with his color. It was everything to do with how he grew up and where, and the trauma of his childhood and my upbringing. It really had nothing to do with either of our colors.
That's the kind of stuff that I think is important to talk about, because there's so much good in everybody that you can find. But there's so much, I was just talking to a friend that says that the research shows that how you're raised, the early formative years, are what we always revert back to. And it's really hard. Like, you go to therapy and you progress and you change and you grow, but the main highways of your brain, right? Like, your brain can create new pathways, new roadways, and you can travel different pathways in your brain. But the main highway that your brain naturally wants to use to get from one place to another are the ones from childhood. Yeah. And you have to work really hard, go around the freeway.
Yeah. And I did have to go around the freeway. So I was doing a combination of both, right? I was like learning not to be judgmental because he didn't have a car. He didn't have a driver's license. He didn't have a degree. He didn't have citizenship.
Mind you, the reason I asked if it was explicitly said to him or if he internalized it, because those are the things that as a parent I would worry about. I mean, anybody who's seen 90 Day Fiancé would be like, come again? Because I would worry, is he marrying you because at the time he met you, you had how many jobs?
5.
You had what degree?
I had a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology and Spanish.
Okay, so a dual major?
No, minored in Spanish, but it became a Bachelor of Arts.
Okay.
Which is like one little step ahead of a Bachelor of Science.
Okay.
Like I was trying to go the extra mile and trying to be self-motivated and
so you had
propel myself.
Jobs, you had a degree, you had a car, you owned your home?
I owned my condo. I bought a condo all by myself.
And your car.
and my car.
So you kind of were the full package. And if you're my daughter, I'm thinking, holy crap, is this a 90-day fiancé situation, or is this just a guy who needs somebody to hold him up so he can do the same thing, so he can achieve the same thing? And you don't know as a parent, like
No.
I've seen in my own family, like things start great and end terribly. And we kind of didn't see it coming sometimes.
And that was kind of the rise and fall of it all, because I was hopeful. I saw so much potential, which he obviously saw in me, because he saw, I believe, all of those things. He had never owned a car. He had never owned a home or a condo. He had never gone to college, but he also wasn't gifted the same opportunities.
He had a really hard childhood. And I think that needs to be talked about, because people aren't just bad.
Yeah. Yeah. I do believe he has always been good at his core. And I do believe he always wanted to do right by whoever he associated with, but got caught into traps and past trauma that affects you later, that I was way far beyond what I was ever capable of understanding, even with a psychology degree. But I will say we are at about 21 minutes into this podcast, and we're going to try to make 2 of these in the same night. So I think we're going to stop kind of right here and move into the next episode, which I think we'll be talking about, I don't know, the dating and what I was like before. And
sure.
we're winging this. But yes, I am going to talk about these things. I am going to express my own feelings and thoughts on this. And people don't like that. They think that children should be protected, but they are hearing it online, on Reddit. They see it.
How about we redefine protect? Because
yes. Protect your children.
Isn't part of what we're doing, though, protecting them? Because I think that living in just a one-sided story is not protecting them, or living in the unknown and not being able to have clarity.
Yeah.
I think that...
Like, what happened, Mom? What happened? Like, I want this to be not a legacy by any means, but I want them to be able to find how I felt, the answers, because I know they're not getting it from the other side. And I know what everybody always says, oh, divorce, only the lawyers win, and only the children are the ones who suffer. And yes, that's true. But I'll say in my circumstance and in my situation, I have suffered. The woman who has left behind has suffered. This is not a 2-man show. This was one person's decision. This was one person's choice. And
it's not to say that you weren't flawed or in error
of course
at all.
Not.
It's just to say that you wanted, like, we can put it on the record and say you wanted to work at it.
Yeah.
You wanted to say, these are my flaws, and to come and say,
and I told them, I'm like, I know that I'm this and I'm that, but like, let's go to counseling. Let's do this.
Let's love each other through it.
And we had for 16 years, so that's why I was like, what the heck? Like, this was supposed to be for eternity, bro. And you're just like calling it 8 kids deep and you're done?
That's tough too, because when we're talking about protecting the kids, how old was the baby?
18 months. She was 18 months old. I had 18 months, 3, 4.5, 6.
Yeah, every 18 months, right?
Every 18 months. 18 to 19.
How you did it.
I know. So there is a lot to this. I know you want the juicy and the dirty right off the bat, but we're setting the stage. So stay tuned for next week. It's going to be a good one.
Lyrics full of ammunition. So now you know what it is to be grit.